Brad, welcome. It's super nice to meet you. I'm really looking forward to talking to you about what you're doing with the over 40 crowd. Can you tell me a bit about what your community is about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, William. Yeah, so my school is Over 40 Fitness Hacks. It's also the same name as my podcast that I started. And for the last 15 years, I was running gyms in Orange County, California, and just, a whole whirlwind of dealing with California politics and how hard it is to run small business in there already. And then, dwindling down 5 years back during COVID pretty much wiped out the last of my gyms. So a lot of us personal trainers realized, oh man, we were kind of holding off that whole online world that we saw all the Instagram personal trainers doing. So we had to jump in, and it was really easy. We found a really good software, and some of our clients that were with us during COVID, were welcome to the idea of personal training at home, and that's how we kind of started. And I had already started my podcast a year prior, so I'm like, oh, this is the way
Your
to go.
setup.
So that's kind of how I started, and my whole theme of over 40 is, that's kind of who could afford us personal trainers in the brick and mortar
Mm,
business. So I just got good at all their problems and helping them solve it. Also realizing that they're over 40, it's you got to worry about their joints and overall health, not just getting lean and getting a six pack. Pretty much the over
right.
40 crowd didn't really care about that. So, and lo and behold, by the time I started my podcast, I turned 40 and a whole slew of problems. So now I know what they were going through.
Love it. So I'm curious about like that transition to doing fitness online. I know, I guess a lot of people by now are used to doing like online workouts and stuff like that, but do you feel like now that you're building a school community, do you feel like you're starting to create a sense of real community online, or are you missing something from the in person?
I mean, definitely in person was, there's a reason why we would, me personally, I would hold on to clients. My average was like 2 years, 2.5 years. And then switching to the online world, mostly running things from my podcast and, putting out there a free 15-minute consultation, get to talk to the people, help them out. And every now and then someone would be interested in services. And then seeing, how little face to face you had with these people, it's not the same as in person. So
Mm,
pretty much in the online world, it's 3 to 6 months of holding someone. And that's the thing I'm striving to get better at. You got to have more touch points, more FaceTime like this on Zoom. Not, you can't just do it
mm,
through emails because you never build that rapport, and
right.
it's very different. So in the online world, it's definitely lucrative. You just need the masses, pretty much.
Interesting. Okay. So it's like the retention is much different online is what you're finding
Yep.
than having an in-person gym, for example.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And then, that's why I was driven to Skool, because seeing how that worked, I didn't like Facebook groups and couldn't get that going. And that's kind of Skool's pitch was, this is Facebook group on steroids. There's so much more stuff
Mm,
you can do. And then I started dabbling in to joining all these other groups. I was like, wow, just the amount of education you can get for free, because that's the whole thing
mm,
Hormozy pitches, right? Is, give free information and let them, you got to win them over to get into the paid version. So I was like
yeah.
sold. So that's why I started mine, started a classroom and just given everything. And then just
Love it.
anyone that needs a little bit extra help, that's where I get the low hanging fruit for, running a business.
Love it. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about school as it grows is that the retention is also going to be platform wide. So I feel like there's going to be less, and maybe this is an assumption, but if people are joining your community and then they also start joining other communities, then there's going to be retention on the platform. So maybe, if they were only in your community, then they might drop off, and you might not see them again if this was like an independent website or something where you're trying to hold them. But because you're holding them in this kind of school ecosystem, I feel like people might even leave for a few months and then be like, oh shit, actually I need to get back in there. The belly's coming back or whatever. So
Yeah.
I
It's a
might see
thing
some.
too. On my intro video for Skool, like how Skool works, I also put in there like the value that I myself have gotten from learning like social media, AI tools,
Mm,
LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. I put that in for my members, like, hey, feel free to, you know, start scanning, what's on Skool, what interests you, because I've had such a great experience. But that's also kind of the thing. I want them to use the app more and be on there more, which will hold my retention a little bit better too. And
Yeah.
it's true. It's the amount of info I've gotten is just insane. So and funny enough, like most of my members that are coming in are podcasts and then
Okay.
other school members. I'm barely
Mhm.
getting anything off of social media, but
Okay.
it's just something you can't stop. You gotta keep going with it.
hmm So, what are some of the things that you like the most about School in terms of the way that the platform works?
Yeah, just the fact that I can upload a classroom, it's linking videos is so easy. I wish school could, have their own hosting site so I didn't have to use YouTube and, a lot of
hmm
those can be shareable links, which is fine, but it'd just be easier if they could hold the whole thing themselves. But other than
Okay.
that, just way more fun and to, converse with the community versus what face groups was like. And the fact that you have to get accepted in versus Facebook groups, most of the time you get in right away, but I guess sometimes they would, you know, scan the people coming in as well. But you just feel safer, like there's less scammers in
Right.
school than Facebook groups. But so far, I've learned, since January to now that, and I heard Hormozy talk about it in one social media post that when it comes down to it, no one even really cares about the classroom
Mm.
as much as the community. And so then I was like, oh, I need to start running these coffee chats. And so every
Mm.
other week, just because of my time, that's all I can do right now. Just run like a half hour coffee chat or Q&A, whatever my members want, because it's not like there's a million of them coming in right now. But I
Mm.
see the value of that big time, like actually being able to talk to them, help them, then I'm getting repeats of the ones that come like every single coffee chat. So that I see that's what I've been missing like this whole time on this online venture that I've done.
Mm. Yeah, I think that I mean, of course, the whole platform is focused around community. So, like, what are those things that really build community in real life? Like having a coffee with a friend is one of the ways that you keep in touch with that friend. If you don't do that, then, you know, an email here and there or like whatever, a comment on their post, it's not going to do as much as this kind of like, connection. It's when I first joined the platform, I was joining a lot of different communities and going on a lot of these kind of Zoom calls, and I feel like that's something that I got a lot of value from when I was first joining. I'm curious, have you like been in different communities and like hopping on calls and connecting with other members in this kind of way?
Yeah, and most of the time it's members, reaching out to me because they're a little bit more experienced and I'm kind of new to it,
Mm.
and also checking out all these different communities of stuff I'm interested in, and then I was going on like every day commenting on people's stuff, trying to help as much as I can, and then just over
Mm.
time you get a little more relaxed on it. But
Mhm.
that I got a lot of people checking out my group just from that. But mostly I just was in the zone of just helping people because when I
Mm.
post a question, it's insane how many people from the community of all these different groups,
Yeah.
mostly in the school group, and
Yeah.
I'll get like 15 messages of people helping me out with like one particular thing. So it's pretty much my go-to now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing support in that community. In terms of your own over 40 fitness hacks community, are you like what kind of things are you excited about in there? Like what kind of things are you building? What kind of things are you most pumped about?
Yeah, like I said, I did all this work to put out this classroom of everything I had. I'm doing the Hormozy
Mm.
method of just give them everything, and then my deal is to keep educating myself, which I do through my podcast. So that's the value of working with someone like me. But then finding out that half of my or most of my members haven't even gone through the classroom. And some of them didn't even know it was there, even though that's literally the pin post at the top of my thing is how
Mm.
school works and how to go to the classroom so we're all on the same page. But
Mm.
I'm like, this is what the people want. They want to comment, ask questions, and then that coffee chat. So I'm trying to
Mm.
give them what they want, but I also want a well-rounded, classroom and school
Yeah.
overall. And then now it's just giving them my time.
So yeah, having them on a coffee chat. I guess if you're on a coffee chat, you could always point them back to stuff in the classroom too.
Exactly, and that's what I'm doing. So now finally the repeat people coming on are now running through the classroom and I can see them on my leaderboard,
Nice.
doing it all.
Hmm. In terms of like, let's get into some of the actual hacks for people over 40. So I'm over 40. What kind of advice do you have for me in terms of fitness?
Yeah, so for that, like the main thing is just slowing down. Like
Mm.
all the 20-year-old influencers you see out there doing all this crazy workouts, CrossFit type stuff and boot camp stuff. It's not needed. The
Mm.
name of the game over 40 is work smarter, not harder. A
Mm.
lot of over 40 people have a lot of injuries. We don't need any more because these bodies are only going to last us so long. But just realizing, even for myself as a personal trainer, we were taught you got to have mechanical load, tension, get as much protein as you can, and get as much micro tears into that muscle as you can to rebuild. And
Mm.
then late, 15 years later, you're seeing all this evidence of no, it's not just micro tears, it's just stimulation. So you don't even really need to tear the muscle that much. You just need to stimulate it. It's a hormonal response to build the muscle up. So I started adopting a different view on all training, which is just more focus on time under tension. So just
Mm.
basically like slow-mo training. Slow everything down you're doing. You can do all the same exercises, just cut the weight in half. Instead
Mm.
of finish repping out like bicep curls in like, a second per rep, try
Mm.
5 seconds or more.
Wow.
And then you realize your body starts growing, getting bigger with the least amount of injuries. So that's like a couple of the main hacks. And then I do a lot of fasting, and just
Okay.
my overall blood work, overall health, everything has just benefited from just focusing on intermittent fasting. And once a month I do kind of a longer 36-hour fast. So
Okay.
those
What
there's way more, but
those are some great fast hacks for sure. So I'm curious about the intermittent fasting. How does that work for you?
yeah. So it's just however many meals you want to eat in a day, 2, 3, 4, whatever. But starting with can for breakfast, your first meal of the day, can you push that as long as you can? Whatever works for
Mm.
you. And then on the other side, dinner, your last meal, can you squeeze that in tighter? So everything is squeezing in a tighter window so you can have a longer fast, basically while you're sleeping and then in the
Oh,
morning.
okay.
And the one thing is, when you do eat a meal, try to finish it in a half hour, and then you're done until your
Mm.
next feeding. There is no snacking, and that is the most important part that took me a long time to figure out. And that's
Mm.
because of the insulin response. When your body has food in stomach, it spikes your glucose, spikes your insulin. Obviously more sugary stuff will take longer to get out of your body versus like vegetables and meat. It's a very
Mm.
low insulin spike, and then it's gone. But when insulin is present in your body, you cannot, or it's very hard to burn fat at all. So as soon as I made that switch, oh my God, my body started becoming a fat burning machine. I got right back to where I was in my 20s, doing way less work. And,
Mm. Amazing. I'm sure that there's so much more that we could get into here in terms of fitness for people over 40. So if anybody is listening to this and they are interested in getting more fit, I would definitely recommend checking out Brad's community. Thanks for talking today, Brad.
absolutely. Thanks for having me on, William.